Well, yesterday Gwen appeared on PBE, which only really means one thing. We got reacting and explaining to do. Now, I've read the bio and I have seen people's response to it. There are a lot of people who are unhappy with Gwen's story, and I kinda understand it. If you haven't read it, I won't spoil it yet. I am still going to make a separate video on that. But people don't like that Gwen is another happy-go-lucky champion, who's always upbeat and who's trying to make sure everyone around her is happy. However, I do believe that the key point of her story is that there is a lot of setup for the future. Once again, we do know that just like Gwen, all the future champions released throughout the year will be linked to an overall story linked to Viego. So even though normally when new champions set up new stories, those open-ended stories take years to continue. I mean, Aphelios was supposed to start some Lunari uprising, and still, we haven't seen anything yet. The reason why I believe it is different with Gwen is because she is linked to the future champions, which means that it is guaranteed that this storyline will continue. That's why the setups she gives us are important. So let me super quickly mention that there are two big things that will also appear in her voice lines. First of all, it was confirmed that she became alive because of Isolde's soul. We don't know if it was a fragment of Isolde or if it behaves just like with Senna, though there seem to be some differences. Because when one of the fragments of Isolde's soul entered Senna, Isolde was able to communicate with her. But here, Gwen has no idea what happened to her. The second thing we learned is that the relationship between Isolde and Viego probably wasn't that good. I wouldn't be surprised if Isolde was forced into the wedding, and if perhaps she did like him, but she just wasn't as obsessed with him as he was with her. That's definitely something that will be revealed later on. But enough for the introduction, let's now go through Gwen's voice lines, which are very simple and they don't reveal a lot, but it is full of really awesome references. So, let's get on it. Actually, super quickly before we start, I noticed that if you have a look at the dolls in the background, yes, most of them are possessed by the Black Mist, but on the left side, you can actually see the Chaos Zone Amumu and Blitzcrank. Those are the two cancelled skins. Anyway, now on to the voice lines.
A talking mountain? Now, what shall I say to you when you fall?
Two things to mention here. First of all, I hate to break it to you, Gwen, but Malphite is not a mountain. He's a shard of a floating city created by Nezuk that was made to protect Ishtal from the void. More importantly, since Gwen comes from the kingdom of Kamavor, or at least that's where Isolde made her, listening to the people around her, she should have the same accent, which is a mix of Irish with a little bit of Spanish in it. But here, Gwen just goes full-on English-British.
Lucian, you face the Black Mist. Show me everything.
Here it is interesting to see that Gwen doesn't have more interactions with Lucian, and later as you'll see, even with Senna. The overall story is that Gwen knows that the Black Mist is evil, it is making people hurt, and so she wants to stop it. That's really the full extent of her story. She doesn't really know what's happening, she just knows the Black Mist is evil and she wants to stop it. And of course, Lucian fought it for so long, whatever he has to say on the topic would be useful to her.
You seem happy, Lux. But you know pain too. Why deny it?
Yes, this is a reference to the fact that Lux is a mage, and that her life in Demacia wasn't the prettiest. But I have to say, it is still very random to see Gwen having an interaction with Lux. Even though lore-wise the champions have nothing in common, and even in League, they will rarely meet in a lane.
Madman who wants to die. What is your story?
Now this is a beautiful reference to one of the coolest stories in League. Olaf is definitely not the most complicated champion. His story is very simple, but the idea behind it is awesome. Basically, a shaman told Olaf that he's going to die peacefully sleeping in his bed, which to a warrior is the worst death imaginable. So now, Olaf is traveling around the world, fighting the biggest and deadliest creatures on Runeterra, just so he can die in battle, and just so he can prove the vision of the shaman wrong. The thing is, the shaman may have been right. So now, Olaf is just destroying everything because he is unable to die. That's his story.
A giant ram who sharpens scissors? Why, dreams do come true.
Ornn makes the best tools on Runeterra, that's really the point.
Riven, Not a chance you'll win with a broken blade.
Now this, unlike with Lux, is an interaction that makes sense, because even though these two may not have much in common when it comes to their lore, Riven and Gwen are likely to meet in top lane.
Senna, you have missed too. But it's not all good, not all bad. How strange.
And this is where we get to the interesting part. You see, just like Gwen, Senna had a fragment of Isolde inside her. And we know that Senna herself can use the mist for her own benefits. And while she is using it, it is not the black corrupting mist. It is almost as if she is able to spawn her own. And Gwen essentially revealed that there is the black mist, but both Gwen and Senna can spawn the hallowed mist. And it is very likely only because of Isolde's power. In fact, some of the quotes later go even deeper. If you think about it, the black mist is pouring out from Viego's heart. So Viego is the source of the black mist. So if Gwen wants to stop it, she will have to face him eventually. But on the other side, there is the hallowed mist, which is created by Isolde. So if we get to see the end of the Ruination storyline, Gwen revealed that it will likely end with Viego and Isolde facing each other. It will be a battle of two different mists. Purely theoretically, I wouldn't be surprised if on one side we had Viego with all his undead abominations, all surrounded by the black mist, but on the other side we didn't see Isolde, but we only see all the champions empowered by the fragments of her soul. And all of those would be fighting for the hallowed mist. That's kinda the overall teaser for the future story. But here comes the other cool thing about this quote. You see, Gwen is confused about the mist surrounding Senna, even though it should feel familiar. Gwen can sense whenever things were touched by Isolde. Whenever she is around Isolde's essence, she feels safe and warm. But here, she doesn't. And I believe that's because this quote would be happening after Viego ripped Isolde out of Senna's body. That's why Senna still has the mist. But Gwen can't feel her maker inside her.
A stage? A voice? Is that really all you are?
And then there is this absolutely beautiful reference. Now of course, lore-wise, these two champions will probably never even meet each other. So, I really do believe that this is a meta commentary of Riot just taking the hit and accepting that Seraphine backfired. Because really, Gwen is pointing out the main lore problem which everyone had with Seraphine. There was really no point to her. She was written as if she was going to save Piltover and Zone from some civil war, and yet she didn't really do anything. She ignored all the big problems. The Brackern are still being turned into machinery, and when she stops her singing, the Zonite and Piltovans still hate each other. She really just doesn't have an overall point. She's singing just to make people happy, not really for a specific reason. And that's what Gwen is referencing. She's referencing the fact that Riot tried to write Seraphine as this always inspiring character, but they didn't really succeed at that. And instead, we accidentally got a boring character. See, and this is the overall energy of Gwen's lore. Just like Seraphine, she is always happy, and she's trying to make everyone else happy. But unlike Seraphine, Gwen has a point to her story. She is going to face Viego eventually. And you can even see that she feels sorry for those who are claimed by Viego's ruination.
A Shuriman! What's the desert like? Do tell me after I win.
Now, another thing you'll notice in her quote is that she's often talking about the Summoner's Rift, which of course is a place that may be canon somewhere around Tokogol in the middle of Valoran, but it was never mentioned in a story yet, so theoretically the Summoner's Rift is not canon. However, she's still talking about the games happening there, because, you know, that way she fits more into the game. But here, when she's talking about a Shuriman, a lot of people thought that it is possible that this might be teasing the Light Sentinel coming right after her. You know, the new champion teased with a lot of sand, which might be in Shurima. Though I find this very vague, so I think this might be just a general quote.
Viego, she hasn't forgotten you, and I haven't forgiven you.
And this is another cool reveal. See, Gwen knows what Viego has done to Isolde, and Gwen actually blames Viego for Isolde's misfortune. And technically she is right. There are two events where Viego really screwed up. He was an awful king, and so people tried to assassinate him, but the assassin missed, and that's how Isolde got poisoned. That's why Isolde died at the first place. She died because Viego was a horrible king. So either Gwen is blaming Viego for that, or she knows that Viego turned Isolde into a wraith, and by doing that he started the entire ruination. So it is possible that Gwen might also be blaming Viego for that. So either it is for the original death of Isolde, or it is for the ruination, which killed Isolde for the second time. Regardless, Gwen doesn't really like Viego.
Yasuo, your clothes are truly terrible.
A really cool reference to the fact that Yasuo doesn't even wear a proper shirt.
Yorick, you look scary, but you don't feel scary. Not to me.
Once again, Gwen is able to see through the mist. So just like she felt sorry for all those corrupted by the ruination, she can see that Yorick looks like he is undead, but he's actually very much alive, because of the vial of the blessed waters he carries on his neck. That's what she is referencing here.
Quite strange. You seem to enjoy that.
And that's a comeback to Olaf's story once again. He was probably very happy he died in a battle.
Senna, you seemed awfully distracted.
And this is a really cool subtle reference. Because Senna died in this voice line, she seemed distracted, and that's why Gwen killed her. But the reason why she would seem distracted is even cooler. Because Viego just ripped Isolde from her body. So right now, Senna is still frantically looking for her. That could be what this voice line is pointing at.
A pretty voice, Seraphine. What a shame that's all you were.
Once again, this has to be Riot commenting on their own work.
There must be better Shuriman fighters out there.
Once again, this is the other line which people also think is relating to the Light Sentinel from Shurima. It is definitely possible, but again, I think this is more of a general quote.
Get up, Thresh. I need answers.
And this is showing us that Gwen doesn't really know where the black mist is coming from just yet. I assume it is going to be quite a surprise once she learns that Viego is responsible for that.
Now you can't ruin anyone else.
And this would be once she realized that.
Your maiden, who was she?
And this is another really cool setup. Because both Viego and Gwen have interactions with Yorick, I really do believe that Yorick will get a story at some point in the near future. And I think we will get more info on the Maiden. You see, till this point, the Maiden of the Mist floating around Yorick is with him because it is trying to consume him. It theoretically comes from the Black Mist. It is just waiting for Yorick to finally die so it can claim his soul. But these two champions reveal that there is more to the Maiden than we thought. I wouldn't be surprised if the Maiden of the Mist was another fragment of Isolde, though it may be like a fragment of her bad personality. Because when it comes to both Gwen and Senna, the side effect of Isolde's soul is that they were blessed by the hallowed mist. That doesn't seem to be the case with Yorick.
She'd be proud.
Now, every now and then, Gwen also points out her maker. And she's talking about how she wishes her maker could see what she's doing now. And I believe these voice lines are supposed to tease us into Isolde actually being inside Gwen. So while Gwen doesn't know it, Isolde is actually watching her all the time. So I think here, Riot is just teasing this sub-story happening with Gwen. Similar to someone like Poppy, who's wielding the hammer that was meant for her without even knowing it.
What a strange, wonderful world. I must make sure it stays that way.
Once again, a simple reference to Gwen's overall story. She wants to stop the mist to make sure everyone's happy.
Back when I was a doll, I really wanted to fight. This is my chance. My only one.
Interestingly, when you get to reading Gwen's story, it is written in a way so it feels like Gwen knew what was happening around her the entire time, even when she was just a doll. The story always talks about Gwen as if she was a living person the entire time. So when here she's talking about things she felt and saw while she was a doll, that might mean that when Isolde made her, she did likely breathe at least a little bit of life into her at the very beginning.
Scissors, needles, thread? These were my maker's tools. I won't take her gift for granted.
And as a doll, all she really did was watching Isolde make stuff with her tools. That's why Gwen knows how to use them. Isolde often leaned her scissors on the doll, pretending that the doll was crafting things with her. That's why Gwen is really deadly with them now.
I remember when she sewed my dress with these scissors. Now they cut a different cloth.
Yes, she's very deadly with them.
Oh, are those mountains beyond the cliffs? I've always wished to see one up close.
Also remember that it is interesting to see that besides the Shadow Isles, Gwen has never seen anything else with her own eyes. It would be cool to see her reaction to something like snow or the desert.
It's called the hallowed mist, but how it feels matters more. Warm, safe, like nothing can hurt me.
And here Gwen is finally talking about the hallowed mist. As I mentioned before, every time she feels Isolde's embrace somewhere, she always feels warm and safe. This was referenced in her bio, and it is referenced in these quotes. So the hallowed mist is likely a byproduct of Isolde's soul. And because Isolde's soul is not inside Senna anymore, that's why Gwen didn't feel this way around Senna.
If only she were here to see this. See me.
Again, it's a quote revealing that Gwen doesn't know how she became alive, while also teasing at the possibility that Isolde is inside her, and she is watching what Gwen is doing.
My maker. Wherever she is, I do hope she's happy.
Again, that's exactly what we were talking about. Maybe Gwen will get to talk to her again in the future. Or rather, for the first time.
She's still with me!
Now as you can see, when she uses her fully stacked ultimate, she does shout out that it is possible that Isolde is with her. But this is more likely talking about the fact that Gwen remembers her. So Isolde is with her in her heart. She doesn't know she may be with her in reality.
Hallowed protection. Blessed mist.
And then she also has a couple of quotes when she's using the mist, where she calls it a hallowed protection and a blessed mist. That's what made everyone believe that Isolde's version of the mist is going to be the counterpart to Viego. That's what might be hinting at a big battle happening at some point in the future.
Just a few more breaths.
Now, out of all the death quotes, this one is by far the creepiest. Because when Gwen became a person, she was just glad she could breathe and feel things. And here, as she's dying, she's just trying to feel as much as she can before she passes out. And that is it for the voice lines. While there were some cool references to what certain champions do, we also got some interesting setups for future stories. Which again, I normally would be pessimistic about this. It takes right a while to actually move the stories forward. When they do, it is really awesome, but it takes time. However, this time around, we know the story will move forward this year. That's why these setups are so interesting. They might be linking to the future champions. And they might be hinting at what will happen with Viego at the very end. Theoretically, Isolde as a separate champion is still not out of question. That can still happen. Though it is more likely that she will be kept as a side character and not as a champion. Because if they turned Isolde into a champion on her own, she would share similarities with Gwen. And I have no idea how they would separate the two. But yeah, the most interesting thing we got from this, for me, is that Yorick may get some more lore. He was always one of the underappreciated champions on the Shadow Isles, so it will be cool to see him getting some spotlight. After all, he was the first person to ever start fighting Viego. Yes, his ghouls were really weak, and in general he didn't really do much, but he was the first one to realize that the Black Mist was evil, and that it was being led by some kind of ruined king. So I'm rooting for you, Yorick. But that is it for this video. So next, we will cover Gwen's entire bio.